Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to episode 14. Welcome back to the new studio of I Was Thinking with Robbie McElhaney. Appreciate you tuning in this week. Hopefully, you caught us last week with our draft experience episode. Just some of the content, hopefully you watched the video of the episode on YouTube and were able to see the content. If you haven't, if you're just a listener, be sure to check us out on YouTube. Go over and check out last week's episode talking about the experience of the draft and everything not pick related, not necessarily football related. So go ahead and check us out on YouTube. Be sure to catch us wherever you catch your podcasts. Make sure you follow us on social media. Today, we're going to dive into some of the draft and some of the picks. We're not going to talk about every single pick, but we're going to talk about highlights of those picks and highlights from the draft. I'll shout out a couple teams I think had a good draft, and we'll kind of go from there. We do have two Reddit stories for today. Some interesting concepts in those stories, but we'll talk about those as we go. And then if you listened to last week, we have a big announcement coming up. Be sure to tune in to the end of the episode to hear that. So let's dive into the draft. And I have all the names written down. I don't know that we need to go through them. Max, I don't even want to try to say his last name. Offensive tackle out of Arizona State. Jeremy Bernard, wide receiver out of Alabama. It's Drew Allar. We'll talk here. Drew Allar, quarterback out of Penn State. Dalen Everett, cornerback, out of Georgia. Jennings Dunker, offensive lineman out of Iowa. Again, we'll talk. I'll interject there. I don't talk a lot about him in my notes to follow. But I think he's a sleeper pick. I'm really excited. I think we got two quality offensive linemen. But I won't jump ahead too far. But I like Jennings. We'll leave it there. Caden Wetjen, wide receiver, specialist returner out of Iowa. Riley Nowakowski, tight end out of Indiana. Gabriel Rubio, D lineman out of Notre Dame. Robert Spears Jennings, safety out of Oklahoma. And then Eli Heidenreich, running back out of Navy. So some notes. Again, I don't want to talk about the class as a whole. I think in general, it's not the most disappointing class the Pittsburgh Steelers have had. It really isn't in a draft, and we'll go into some of my sentiments on the front office from the draft here in just a second. But I don't think as a whole it was an awful class. We filled some needs that were. This is the first time I think I can sit back and say the Pittsburgh Steelers attacked their needs, not just like drafted. I think in some ways they still didn't have a plan, but at least they went and filled some needs, right? So the first point I'm going to make, they took a freaking tackle. They took a tackle. I've never felt so intelligent in my life. And I know it got some backlash. And here's the thing, do I wish they had gotten some more experience? Yes. That'll come up in a point that I'm going to make about the front office and the handling of the draft at the end here. But I don't think Max is a bad get. I forget. I think I had it in the video last week where I was talking to Brandon. You met Brandon last week, where we were talking about it, and I said low floor, high ceiling. Or right now, and do I love him? Is he a day one, throw him out there and let's roll, let's go win a Lombardi? Absolutely not. But do I think he has some longevity? I think the kid is full of potential. And that's something that often gets left out. Just because everybody, and the world we live in now is such an immediate response world. Like we want everything now. And everything has to happen now. And I can't say I'm not guilty of that. But I mean, he's got a ton of potential. Let the kid roll. What kids say? Let him cook. I think I don't hate the pick. We needed a tackle. I think the front office could have done better at getting aggressive, but we'll talk about that here in a second. Um, but they took a tackle and they filled a need. We needed a tackle, and everything with the Broderick Jones situation isn't looking good. Whether that's him as a Steeler or him as a football player, we need to fill that spot. That we need to have something there, and I think Max gives us the ability to add depth with potential and a potential. He's got potential. Low floor. Right now he's not. Right now, and I know this defies everything I've said. Right now, he's not a first round pick in my mind. But for whatever reason, they took him in the first round. I think he would have been a good get on Friday. But they took him in the first round. He's got a ton of potential. The thing that's going to get left out is this part won't, that he's only played football for 5 years. But here's the thing: he's a soccer player. Typically, I frown on soccer. I'm not a soccer guy. Except for this last weekend, we watched our nephew's 5-year-old soccer game, and it was one of the most enjoyable experiences of my life. But it's sidebar on that. Watching kids get into sports and find that's what's fun about that. Um, my sentiments on youth sports have drastically changed over the years, and just watching these kids enjoy a sport and enjoy the game the way just for the sake of it being the game. That was fun. So maybe my sentiments on soccer have changed. But here's the thing: Max is an experienced soccer player. He's only played football for 5 years. What does soccer do? It builds footwork. What do you need to be a successful tackle, a successful offensive lineman at any level? You need to have great footwork. So if we can take a kid in that's got a lot of potential, that has footwork standards, I think we have a chance with some good offensive line coaching to develop him into a serious threat and a long term solution at that tackle spot. Where are we at? We added receiver depth, and I'll make a note on that. We added receiver depth, but not just at the receiver position. Okay. Bernard, I think he's adding a great possession receiver into the mix. Now to me, you have a true 1-2-3 if he, winds up filling that spot. I think you'd still have some good depth rolling over from last year, but you'd still have a true 1-2-3 now. With Bernard out of Alabama. Caden Wetjen gives you some dynamic speed, some options. He's to me that's a plug and play guy. He could fit in that 3A, 3B kind of more so 3B, maybe 3C, 4. Not he's a dynamic athlete. He gives you some options in the special teams game. You have a good true returner, so you're not putting so many miles on Warren or anybody like that. You have some speed there, and you can throw him in at the slot and make some stuff happen there. I think he gives you some options at the receiver spot that you didn't necessarily have to start. Riley Nowkowski gives needed depth at the tight end position, but I also think coming from the scheme that he came from, that's a dynamic piece, and especially with how the Steelers want to use tight ends, he's a good spot. He's a better tight end than we lost per se in Hayward, in Jonnu. I think he gives you some options at the tight end spot to split him out and to be a receiving tight end, but he also has the ability to attach to the line there and give you some depth in that tight end room, just to again take some miles off of a Freiermuth and guys like that could be more of a receiving threat. And Eli Heidenreich, first off, what a feel good story that was. And I'm not one for a PR draft pick. I made my sentiments known a couple years ago with the Kenny Pickett decision. I'm not a PR draft pick guy, typically, but I think you get a good player in Eli Heidenreich. I really do. On top of the feel good story, the Mount Lebanon, Pittsburgh native, goes to Navy, breaks records. And here's the thing with him. Do I think he survives in the running back spot specifically? No. But I think he adds a little bit of something that, I mean, he was a receiving threat as a running back at Navy. That's, part of his record breaking, career was in receiving. Um, so I think there's a spot there, whether it's some two back stuff, you can do some different things with him out of the backfield, or just line him up at a slot and let him, work. Let him cook again. I'm not a modern catchphrase guy, but let him do something. I think that, again, going back to the pick itself from a PR standpoint, I like this pick. I do think they're getting a good player. They're getting a kid that knows what the Steelers mean to the city because he grew up in it. And so, I think, and especially with what you learn at a military academy, having had the privilege to have toured Air Force, and I know he's from Navy, but you get to see the standards that are military academy football programs, and you just see how they work and everything, and I think they're getting a good player and a seventh round pick in Eli Heidenreich. I don't think he's a running back at the NFL level. I do think they can do some things with him out of the backfield. I think he adds a lot of depth and positive traits to our passing game, especially pending who the quarterback ends up being. To me, Heidenreich ends up, adding some good check down depth and some good options and some quick game, short pass situations that we haven't necessarily had um, in a while. And the more you can add to the short game, to the intermediate route game, to the quick game stuff, you're going to open up DK on some home run balls just because you have to, defense has to match what you're doing. And we've been such a one trick pony in both the run game and the pass game, especially this past year, that, it's been difficult. And so I think some of that receiving depth, not necessarily wide receiver depth, but receiving game depth was a big win for the Steelers. I do think we got better at the secondary. We needed a safety. I think, and they got better there with Spears Jennings from Oklahoma. I think that was a win. And here are my two big losses from the draft for the Pittsburgh Steelers. First off, Drew Aller, and I know I'm wearing my Penn State hat, and I am a converted Penn State fan. I just don't get it. I don't see it. I don't think the Steelers got better with taking Drew Aller. I really don't. Um, I don't think, and granted, I think Garrett Nussmeier was a name I was throwing around. I know Josh has thrown it around a couple times on the episode on the show here. Um, both were risky picks. This was not the year, and I'll talk about here with another team. This to me was not a year to take a quarterback, because now the Steelers, in my mind, are just going to be in the same situation next year. Because if we get Rodgers back, now year 2 and 3 are a 1 year Will Howard and a rookie Drew Aller, who is not a good quarterback. And call me crazy, Penn State fans, tell me if I'm wrong. Drew Aller is, I don't want to say soul-heartedly, but a good chunk of the reason James Franklin lost his job last year at Penn State. I firmly believe that. I don't think Drew Aller adds anything positive to the quarterback room, to the offense of the Pittsburgh Steelers. I don't know why, especially in the third round, you take him. But, you know, I think it just follows suit with my next point here, with how badly the front office of the Pittsburgh Steelers handled the 2026 draft. First off, the situation that I think needs to be discussed is the Eagles Cowboys trade to take Malachi Lemon. I will preface my points on this with I am not upset at all about missing out on Lemon. I'm not. I thought I would be, but I also think he's just another diva wide receiver that the Steelers don't need. We've had enough of those. We've experimented enough with those. The Steelers don't need that. I am fine missing on Malachi Lemon. We did not need that. But here's the thing: we sat back and watched per you know looking at the tackle situation. We watched talented tackle after talented tackle with experience come off the board while we're sitting on what, 6 or 7 picks for between day 2 and day 3 that we could have traded, that and some roster moves that could have been made to move up and be aggressive in the draft. And for whatever reason, the Steelers front office does not seem to have a desire to be aggressive in drafting in anything. I think we are there's just such a passive organization to just let it happen. I mean, they can't even cheat good. Now they're in draft or tampering what tampering investigations and stuff like that. We can't even cheat good or cheat right. I don't get it. I don't see why. I don't see how, if you are Art Rooney, Omar Khan still, and I know, going back to episode 1, my first thing on this show was I don't want to call for jobs. I don't believe in that, and I still really don't. But there are also times in athletics where people have to look in the mirror and say, this dude shouldn't have the job he has. And I think Omar Khan has proven enough times that he shouldn't have the job that he has as the general manager of the Pittsburgh Steelers. I think he failed in managing this draft for the sake of the draft. I thought they did okay, but he failed at managing the draft. As a general manager, your job is to manage the organization, and that is in the draft and everything that they do. And he failed at managing the draft. He failed. I just don't get it. I don't know how, as Art Rooney, you can sit back and say that's our guy. I don't understand it. I do. Again, I think they did a good enough job at filling needs, at identifying some weaknesses. I wrote this comparison down. And again, I mean, going back to the Lemon situation, not the fact that we missed out on Lemon, but you got hosed while hosting the draft. You got beat by hosting the draft, and you got beat, mind you, by the Cowboys and the Eagles. Two teams you do not allow yourself to get beat by in the city of Pittsburgh. We allowed ourselves to get beat, if for nothing else, because our front office lacks any kind of aggressiveness and assertiveness, and we just let things happen. We don't go after what we want. I'll shout out a team early, and we'll talk about them. The Chiefs, they saw a need at the cornerback spot, and they went out and got it. Did they have to move up 3 or 4 picks or whatever they did? Maybe, maybe not, but they did it. They found a way, and they did it. And the Steelers, for whatever reason, Omar Khan chooses not to do that. I did make a comparison going back to a team that I just mentioned, the Cowboys. The day that Jerry Jones Jerry Jones won the 2026 draft, at least in comparison to the Steelers. I don't want to say I haven't looked at the complete grades or anything like that, but in all honesty, and I'm separating so I don't get in trouble, I am separating Jerry Jones and the Cowboys. I'm looking at them as two different entities in some way, shape, or form. And Jerry Jones himself had a good draft, which ultimately means the Cowboys had a good draft. But when Jerry Jones looks sane compared to Omar Khan and the Rooneys, we have a problem, Pittsburgh. Not the Cowboys. When Jerry Jones looks sane, we have a problem. And Jerry Jones looks sane compared to Omar Khan and the Rooneys and Mike McCarthy and the janitor and the cook and everybody in that organization. Jerry Jones beat us. How does that happen? Not the Cowboys, Jerry Jones. And we'll jump ahead. I do think the Cowboys had a phenomenal draft. I really do. I think they saw that they were weak on defense this past year. I think their offense is doing just fine. But I think, I don't want to say, mainly prideful reasons, I don't want to say look out for the Cowboys, but look out for the Cowboys. I think they're getting better on defense now. They've made some moves, and I think they will continue. The offseason's still young. So look out for the Cowboys. I think they had a great draft. The other team I already mentioned, the Chiefs, I think they had a really good draft. They saw needs that they needed to do, and they aggressively pursued those. And they found a way to make it happen. And so my hat's off to those two teams. I think the Cowboys and the Chiefs had an outstanding weekend at the draft. The Steelers filled needs. They got better, but in my mind, at the same time, it just wasn't good enough. And maybe I'm just that complicated of a person to where I don't know what is going to be good enough, but that certainly was not, in any stretch of the imagination, good enough. Let's jump into some Reddit stories. We got 2 Reddit stories here. Let me get them pulled up. My high-tech self-using links. So a couple more interesting topics than Reddit stories. The first one, when your teen wants to quit a sport. My son is a 9th grader and is in his 3rd year of track. He's been begging to quit this year. How do you handle a teen that wants to quit something they signed up for? He's genuinely being miserable about it, and although there's only a couple weeks left, I'm tempted to give in. Is this a battle worth having? Should I let him quit? If it were up to him, he'd spend every waking moment playing video games, which I don't mind when it's in moderation. But these are 3Ds and Wii games. I don't know what that means. So they're not something where he can socialize a bit while enjoying them. So here's my thoughts. There's only a couple comments, I think, or maybe there's more once I hit a few more comments. Make a deal. If he chooses to quit, then take something else up. That's fair. We don't let our kids quit when they've signed up already. They have to finish the commitment they made, but they don't have to do it next year. Yep. Have him finish the season. Tell him if it's not track, it has to be something else. In terms of a sport or activity that he's involved in regularly, if the team isn't relying on him, I'd let him. Your team has tried it for 3 years. If it's not like he's giving up on something new without trying, that's fair. I let mine, or one person comments on that, I let mine quit all the time. If they don't like it, it makes them braver to try in the first place, unless it's a team sport where others are counting on him. Fair. I think it depends on why. For my 9th grader, she's seriously considering quitting ballet because the demands of school on top of the demands of dance were really wearing her down. I hate to see her quit, but I can also see the mental toll it's taking. If they already signed up, it's a commitment that they have to follow through with. They don't have to sign up next year. What is his reason? Have you talked to the coach? First off, I'm going to stop there. Don't talk to the coach. Leave the coach alone. First off, the coach he cares, but the last person, unless it's a serious situation, the last person the coach wants to hear from is the parent. Period. End of story. Do not reach out to the coach. Hobbies are supposed to be fun, so he should have definitely quit already. Let him quit. They don't get to quit. I'd let him quit if he's miserable. I would insist he finish the season. I think there's a good mix there, and I think there's a lot of validity in a lot of these points. Here's my take, and I kind of follow suit with a lot of the comments here. I am a finish the season kind of guy. Just because here's the thing, you committed to it. And I know we talked about, I forget which Reddit story about, not wanting to play and then people get injured and stuff like that. But here's also the thing. You signed up for it. It doesn't have to be a long-term thing. If at the end of the season, you know what, I'm done, okay, then you make that decision. But and it's different. I know it's not a contract. You're not obligated to finish the season or finish the sport or anything like that. But when you sign a contract, you committed. When you sign up for a team, you committed to the team. And after 3 years, you know what you're getting into. So if you don't like it, don't sign up for that third year. I don't think. I think there's a difference between quitting and walking away. I will never, ever in my life support quitting. If I'm blessed with the opportunity to be a father one day, my children will not quit. You don't get to quit. You can leave after the year and you can say, you know what, this wasn't for me. I'm glad I tried it. I'm glad I saw something through. But when things get tough and things aren't enjoyable, here's the thing. A lot of things in life, call me crazy, they're not overtly enjoyable. That's life. But that doesn't mean you don't have to follow through and finish what you start. You can stop at the end and say, you know what, this isn't for me. I've tried it. I have pressed through something. I've accomplished something that I didn't enjoy doing, but I also didn't quit on the people around me. And whether it's, I know some people were saying, well, it's not a team sport or anything like that, so there's not necessarily people counting on them. There absolutely is, and it can be an individual winning sport or an individualized sport, but you have a team around you. You don't, call me crazy, but that's when people start walking away from things, and when life gets hard, let me walk away. And I will never understand that. I don't believe in letting your kid quit. I do believe in letting them say at the end of the year, you know what, this isn't for me. It's not working anymore. I'm good. I don't want to do it anymore. I've tried it and it's just not my thing. By all means, walk away. And here's one I'd like to get your thoughts on too. But next topic: what is the best piece of sports advice you've ever received? Let's look at some comments and I'll give my talk or my thoughts on it. This is one I'd love to see your thoughts in the comments, but let's see here. Have fun. If it's not fun, what's the point? And yes, I get this may not be the best advice for professional athletes. Most of us are not professional athletes. I get that. A side comment off of that, I get the idea of have fun as a focus, but sport has so much more to offer. I agree. To answer your question, learning discipline and perseverance even when it's not fun. Yes, learning how your body works and how to do hard things, even when it's not fun. Yes, learning how much better you feel when we'll skip that one. We'll skip that one. Learning skills and overcoming the desire to quit. We just talked about that. Learning how to be on a team, learning how to win and how to lose. I think, and here's the thing that I think often gets overlooked. I think the best area to learn loss, and that is in athletics and in life. If you can't learn how to lose in sport, I think you're doomed for a long life, honestly. Just because if you don't understand how to handle things when wins are taken away, and it's simple. Like, and I'm not saying it as though like this is the most important life lesson because it's sports and losses account. Like, no, it's a simple thing. But if you can handle and learn how to handle losing something simple, then it sometimes at the time is massive and is a big thing. I think you're set up for life so much better. But I agree with it's Flat Stacy. Flat Stacy, I agree with you. If you travel back in time, don't step. What? Okay? I don't quite get how that's sports. If you aren't fit, if you aren't falling, you aren't trying hard enough. I get that, but at the same time, I don't. I played in quotes football at a Division One school, known for its academic prowess. I used the term "played" lightly because I was only used sparingly on special teams and the backups back up on offense in dire situations. I say that to paint the picture of the best advice I was given by my coach at the time. I was a in my third semester uh, there, and being from a tiny rural town to a Division One athlete in a major metropolitan city, I indulged in parties and extracurricular activities more than I should have. Our head coach called me and asked me to come meet with him. I wasn't sure what was going on, so I wasn't nervous. I sat down and he asked me, "Son, what do you think your role on this team is on this team?" To which I replied, "To play football, sir." His response, "You're here to raise the team GPA and you're doing a shit job at it. Why do I need you?" That was the most brutally honest and eye opening conversation I ever had with a teacher, coach, or person of power. I spent the next 10 minutes, which felt like an hour, stumbling my way through selling myself to the coach. Needless to say, after that, I made the dean's list every semester and graduated with a 3.5. This advice was profound for me because I had never been told to basically know my role or get out before. And that's fair. It's something that has impacted the way I view myself when working with groups, teams, and coworkers forever. And I'll never forget to one, know my role, two, perform my role to max effort, and three, if I can't do the role, get the hell out of the way. Honestly, I've kind of changed my mind now. That's it kind of sums up. That's probably the best piece of advice you can get in sports. And here's the thing where I think sports, and I think we've talked about it, whether directly stating it like this or not. Sports has the most relative aspects to real life. In my honest and humblest opinion, sports is the best communicator in teaching life, how life works. Because the thing is, when I was coaching, and I think I got lost in the football a ton. But our your main goal is to get your athletes ready for life. Ideally, if you're doing it at a high enough level and doing it at a good enough pace, you're getting them ready for a life that carries on into a professional career. 99.9% of the time, that's not going to happen. So it is your job to get your players ready to go on to life. If you don't know your role, you're going to get passed by. You have to perform your role to a max effort, and if you can't do that, then you need to get the hell out of the way so somebody else can step in and do that. I very much agree with that. Going back to the first one, the first comment about, have fun. If it's not fun, what are you doing it for? Absolutely not. I think that is the worst piece of advice. I think having fun is an important message, and you're able to find ways to have fun while competing, while being involved in sports. And I'm not saying not to have fun and not to enjoy it, because it has to be enjoyable. If you're not enjoying it, it's going to be a problem, but not every day is going to be fun. I can't say I enjoyed every day playing, certainly playing, but coaching I also didn't enjoy every day, and I think that's okay. The idea that sports has to be fun 24/7 or all the time or however it works, I'll never understand. I don't get that. I don't know why that is something that is pressed on and moved on. I don't. Sports are tough. I think the second comment in that the response to that first comment was great. Learning skills and overcoming the desire to quit, I think is huge. There are times in certain jobs that I had before, after, during anything coaching that I did not enjoy. But if it wasn't for the the memory of I also didn't like 2-a-days or 3-a-days or getting hit during 2-a-days or 3-a-days and stuff like that. Like if it wasn't for that, life becomes so much easier to walk away from instead of you know what we're still to go and we're still showing up and the ability to press forward into something that I didn't particularly enjoy, for what it's worth. But that's, I mean, learning how to win and how to lose, all of that. We talked about that. Discipline, perseverance. Sports can teach you so much if you allow it, right? So now I think the one thing that did get lost and where my piece of advice was to be yourself because the thing that people don't give athletes or people in athletics a ton of credit for or enough credit for, and maybe they do, but even if they do, it's still not enough. People can read BS easier than any book you could read. If you're not yourself as a player, as a coach, you're gonna have problems. And now people could say, well, I'm being myself, but I'm not productive. Okay, not everybody's supposed to be. Know your role. But be yourself in that role. If you're not, you're not going to accomplish what you want to. You're not going to be a valuable part of the team because in recruiting, most of the time I try to get to know the person outside of the game. I wanted to know you because you have to fit into the program, not you as an athlete. You as a person have to fit into the program and have to fit to the standards of what we do. And if you can't, it's going to be a long year. It's going to be a long 4 years in some cases. So be yourself. And I do encourage, I do support to have fun because if it's not fun, it's a miserable time. But knowing that fun isn't the main thing you're there for, per se. And at the youth level, going back to the youth soccer game, fun is essential. It is beyond imperative that you have fun because now that fun is going to carry you when it's not fun. Then you remember why you fell in love with it, why you started the game. And then learn your role, know your role, and if you can't do it to the best of your ability, maybe it's time to consider at the end of your third year of track to walk away. And, I think this was a really good two topics to tie in together. But that's really it. I do hope, like I said earlier at the start of that topic, comment, text, email, message me your thoughts on that topic. What's the best piece of sports advice or advice that can tie in? We just said sports ties into life. Life ties into sports. What's the best piece of advice you've gotten that you would like to share? Now, we're wrapping up here. I have one last thing. We are very excited about this, and this isn't something that is going to be immediately released, but we are working towards it. We talked a little bit about the sports cards last week, and that's going to be a part of it, but we are within the next foreseeable soon time frame. We are going to be launching a Patreon. So for a small monthly fee or charge, I don't know how Patreon calls it, but for a small monthly contribution, really, to our show and to what we're doing, we're going to give you some exclusive content, some question and answer things, some following us along on our card collecting journey. We'll be talking about that collection. I don't know. I'm producerless today, so I don't know if we're going to talk collection on our show itself or just on the Patreon, but we are going to be launching a Patreon. I would love any kind of support we could get there. We're going to have some different content and some more interactive content there. But just be on the lookout for that. We are very excited about it. It's something we've been working on almost since the beginning of the show, but we haven't really found the way to completely swing into it and found the niche part of the show for that. But we think we found it between some different pieces of content that we'll have coming up. So be sure to look out for that. We are launching that here within the next couple weeks, I'd say, at the latest. But with that said, we do appreciate the support we've gotten so far on the show. It's been great for me. It's been a blessing for me, and I can't thank you enough for your support and for tuning in. Make sure you follow us on all our social medias. Check us out on YouTube. Check out last week's episode again if you haven't, on the draft experience and some draft content. We'll be getting back into the swing of things. Make sure you tune into Garrett's show. I'm going out to record tomorrow, so between Friday, well, I guess tomorrow, because this will release today on Wednesday at some point. But I'm going out to film with Garrett. We're going to talk about the draft and talk about a couple things. Make sure you follow him. Make sure you check him out. He's got a Patreon too if you're looking to support Garrett. But be sure to follow us. Be sure to get involved. Be active with the show. We'd appreciate it. And always keep thinking. We'll see you next week.